This is the Almost Timely newsletter for the week of October 30th, 2022. Happy Halloween for all those who celebrate. What's on my mind this week? The demise, the end of the public water cooler. A lot of folks spilled a lot of digital ink this week about the change of management at Twitter. While that's certainly a discussion topic and one we'll talk about in just a bit, there's a bigger picture angle here. The demise of the water cooler, at least the public one. As media continues to fragment, there are fewer and fewer places that serve as a central point of cultural synchronicity. And by that, I mean media and culture we have all in common. In the, not the good old days, the questionable old days, there were very few media outlets, right? You had your local newspaper, you had the local radio station or two maybe, and like 3 TV channels, ABC, NBC, and CBS. Now, granted, this is 70 years ago. But for good or ill, during that time, almost everyone had the same mass-produced cultural point of view, even when it was horribly repressive, racist, and sexist. As time has gone by, we've added more and more media. Cable TV brought us dozens of television choices. Satellite radio put hundreds of choices in the radio broadcast receiver of your choice. And then the internet came along and made our choices for media effectively infinite. And for the first time, truly bi-directional. We weren't just media consumers anymore. Many of us became media producers. The moment that you post a blog, a video hosting site, make a podcast episode, or put something up on social media, a photo on Instagram or on TikTok, you're a media producer. Regardless of the quality, you are a media producer. Now, in the early days of public social media, places like MySpace and Twitter and Friendster and stuff, these became large cultural water coolers where people could gather. They were loud and confusing and rowdy and contentious, like BBSs and forums before them. They could get a little ugly at times, right? But those spaces still allowed for a lot of serendipity, a lot of meeting new folks that you otherwise would not have. Now, mired by scandals like Cambridge Analytica, politicians behaving badly, hostile foreign powers, co-opting systems to undermine adversaries, and many other issues, public social media channels have become less and less like water coolers over time, and that trend is accelerating with the changes in public social media. For example, after the recent management changes at Twitter, usage of a particular racial slur accelerated by 10x, literally overnight. That sort of thing causes people, for good reason, to leave public spaces for greener pastures. And those pastures are private communities like group chats, Slack, Discord, Telegram, private social media, Patreon, OnlyFans, you name it. If it's out of the public cesspool, that's where people want to be, right? Those pastures fill that role of nicer places. Now, instead of dealing with, random hostile people in public spaces, like there's a bunch of trolls yelling at me this week on Twitter, in these private spaces, you can hang out with like-minded people. This phenomenon is something I talked about in the members-only paper I shared a few months ago. The consequence of an increasingly fragmented media space where people and their attention is more diffused than ever is that lack of a cultural touchstone. As groups become more insular and polarized, we have fewer and fewer ways to bridge those differences. There's less and less in common that we have. Should you choose to, and many people have, you could set up your life easily today to never see, hear, or think about anything you don't agree with. And you could be surrounded by like-minded people all the time. Regardless of your political background or how you approach things, you can have a bubble of your own that is a place where you never have to see things you don't agree with. Now, none of this is news. None of this should be news. We've been talking about the fragmented media landscape for a quarter of a century now. But the pace of fragmentation is accelerating. For example, for those of folks who are not familiar with Discord, every Discord server is its own community. Yes, Discord is the service that these communities run on, but each server is its own little thing, right? You can have a Discord server for fiction writers, for fans of Black Adam, for people who like to cook left-handed. You name it. You can create a Discord server that is invitation only, or at the very least out of the public eye, for the subject or the common ground that you want to have in the people around you. Now, because every server is its own community, it's not visible to the outside world until you're a member of the group, and these communities are exploding. Take a look at this. So this is the number of Discord servers that have been created by month for the last couple of years. Look at last month, 83,000 new communities, right? Thousands or tens of thousands of new communities, private communities every month. I call them velvet rope communities. Every time a new private social media community is stood up, public social media takes a hit. Why? Because there's 24 hours in a day, right? And the time we spend in these private communities, these velvet rope communities, is time we're not spending at the public water cooler. It's time we spend with people we have an affinity towards and away from the prying eyes of advertising technology and marketers. The water cooler is gone. Well, the public one is gone. So what does this mean for us as marketers? The short version is that in a fragmented media landscape, we can't be everywhere. We can't even be most places. So we have to find the places where our best users are and invest in those places. That requires market research, requires asking our existing customers, where do they spend their time online, and figuring out how do we integrate those places and cultures into our marketing. It means embracing the current new media model, which is creator-led. The creator economy is booming. I just saw on the news, Mr. Beast on YouTube earns like $54 million a year on content alone, according to Fortune magazine. As the media landscape fragments, we can't rely on a channel like Twitter or Facebook or Google for our marketing opportunities. People aren't tuning into a channel. They're tuning into individual creators, people, individual media properties. This has been a trend we've been seeing for the last 10 years, highlighted by folks like Tom Webster over at Sounds Profitable, who has said that in his research, people don't listen to podcasts. People listen to individual specific shows. You don't listen to podcasts in general. You listen to Marketing Over Coffee or In-Ear Insights or Freakonomics or Serial, right? You listen to specific individual properties. This is true across the media landscape, right? We don't watch YouTube. We watch Guga Foods, or we watch Gordon Ramsay, or we watch Hazelnutty Games, or pick the individual creator that we watch, that we like. If we are to advertise as marketers, we advertise on public channels that lead to creator communities. For example, if a creator has a public broadcast outlet of some kind, their Twitch channel, their TikTok, their YouTube, and then the standard workflow is from those public channels, they motivate people to join their private communities, Discord, Slack, Patreon, OnlyFans. And if we know that specific creators have our audience, we can market to the public audience in their creator spaces. However, it's probably more productive to just simply sponsor specific creators rather than target the entire media properties as a whole, right? Advertising across all of Twitch, it would be really, really expensive. Advertising solely on Sasha Gray's channel would be probably a little more affordable. One key undiscussed aspect of these changes is that today's influencer marketing identification tools are woefully underpowered for detecting this kind of influence in public and private social media communities. It's harder than ever to effectively measure influencers, and that's only going to get worse before it gets better. Particularly with what's happening at Twitter, most influencer marketing tools use the lion's share of their data comes from Twitter because it's a public social graph. And as that graph and the underlying data changes, those tools could get substantially less reliable. And where have all those people gone that were in the public water cooler? Into those velvet rope communities. Media fragmentation inherently means more polarization and insulation, which are societally detrimental. However, they also mean more focused groups of people, and for the purposes of reaching very specific groups of folks, this is the silver lining. Right? I was going to say it's a good thing. It's the silver lining to an otherwise fairly dark cloud. The absence of cultural touchstones also means we can't bank on generic, general content and creative content that tries to speak to everybody, because there is no everybody anymore. Everybody is gone. Instead, we have collectives of much smaller groups of people who are ideologically and intellectually and culturally distinct from each other. Showing an ad for across 10 different Twitch channels is not going to resonate, right? If those channels are radically different, because they have different people. So what we create in marketing, as our marketing, has to be as specific as our audiences are becoming. What we create as marketing has to be as specific as our audiences are becoming. No more generic content. The big public water cooler is gone, and in its place are a million new ones, smaller ones, located all over the place, sometimes in public, most of the time in private. Our job as marketers is to show up respectfully at the right ones, listen carefully, and participate when we have something of value to contribute to the conversation. If we do this right, we embrace the new media landscape and continue to be effective. If we do this wrong, we get exiled and we lose access to our audiences, maybe permanently. So, no more public water coolers. What else is happening in the news this week? In case you missed it, besides the Google Analytics 4 course that I'm constantly marketing to you, this week I did a 5-part series on the AI Bill of Rights. This is something the U.S. government proposed. It's not about the rights of machines. It is about the rights of people and what machines should or should not be allowed to do to us. So we talked about all 5 pieces: safe and effective systems, algorithmic discrimination, data privacy, notice and explanation, human alternatives. So check out that series. It was fun to do. It was a good deep dive into the proposal, which was very well thought out and had some really good concrete examples. Let's take a look at what's happening in jobs this week. Adobe Analytics Consultant at AdSwerve, Director of Content Marketing at Acronis, Director of Organic and SEO Strategy at Pearson. We have Manager Marketing Activation at Fidelity Investments, Market Data Analyst at Compare the Market, Senior Content Marketer at Growth Therapy, Senior Director of Marketing Analytics at Marriott, Vice President of Communications and Corporate Marketing at Amplitude, and Vice President of Product Marketing at Amplitude. So lots of new positions popping up. If those sound interesting, just click on the link in the newsletter and it'll take you right to the job listing. What other stuff was in the news this week? TikTok considering fulfillment and getting more views. The whole thing with Twitter. How to develop a content strategy in 7 steps. AI-based content is the next SEO. Democratization of SEO. Guides for SEO and event marketing. AI and the retail landscape. Societally beneficial reinforcement learning systems. Data lakes or data warehouses. And in the news, a triple-demic, which is flu, RSV, and COVID. So, yeah, that's gotta be something. Upcoming events. This week I'm headed to Belgrade, Serbia for HeapCon. So if you are in the area or at that event, come say hi. And then a couple weeks later, I'm headed out to Vegas for an event there. So catching some year-end travel before the holidays. That's the news for this week. Thank you for tuning in. Got a question about anything we talked about? Hit reply. I'll answer. Leave a comment if you're watching this on like YouTube and stuff. And I'll talk to you next week. Stay safe, everyone. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.